The memorial wall stretched 50 meters long. Names covered every centimeter. Most were human names. Daewon stood before it, his hand touching the newest editions. 89 names from the Hive ship mission. Taemin's name was there, carved in stone, forever young, forever remembered. Other soldiers passed by, paying their respects. A few stopped to salute. Most just walked on. Death had become so common that mourning felt like a luxury no one could afford. In the command center, they were celebrating. Through the windows, Daewon could see officers raising glasses. Hana stood at the center, receiving another medal. The Hive ship's destruction had changed the war's momentum. The Vrex offensive had stalled. Coalition forces were pushing back. Yuna approached from behind. "You should be in there," she said. "They're honoring your mission." "They're honoring dead soldiers," Daewon replied. "There's a difference. You're upset. I'm tired." He turned to face her. "Did you find out more about those casualty numbers?" Yuna glanced around to make sure no one was listening. "I did. It's worse than you thought. In the last 6 months, humans have taken 62% of all combat deaths. Your species makes up 8% of forces, but takes more than half the casualties. And High Command knows this? Of course they know. They also know that human-led operations have a 93% success rate. You win battles, Daewon. You just die doing it." Something cold settled in Daewon's chest. "So we're acceptable losses." "That's a harsh way to put it. Is it wrong?" Yuna did not answer immediately. "There's a meeting in 10 minutes. Another operation. They're going to ask for human volunteers again." Daewon closed his eyes. "What is it this time?" "Vrex breeding grounds on Kaltos 4. High Command wants them destroyed. They're calling it Operation Clean Sweep. Let me guess. Human soldiers go in first. You know how it works." "Yes, he did. Humans always went first. Humans always took the hardest jobs. Humans always died in the largest numbers. Because they said yes. Because they believed in the cause. Because they were too honorable to refuse." The meeting room was full when Daewon arrived. Admiral Hyun stood at the front displaying holographic images of Kaltos IV. The planet's surface was covered in Vrex structures. Thousands of them. "Intelligence indicates this is a major breeding site," Hyun explained. "If we destroy it, we set their war effort back years. But it's heavily defended. We estimate 15,000 Vrex warriors on site." A Krell general spoke up. "What forces do we have available?" "I'm proposing a combined assault. 5,000 ground troops supported by orbital strikes." "Composition?" asked a Valthene commander. 3,000 human shock troops leading the assault. 2,000 Krell and Valthene providing support and extraction. Daewon felt anger rising in his chest. 3,000 humans, leading another suicide mission. How many would come back? Half? A quarter? "I have concerns," he said, standing up. All eyes turned to him. "We're asking human forces to take point again. My battalion is at 75% casualties. Other human units are similar. We're running out of soldiers." "We're all running out of soldiers," Hyun said. "This is war, but humans are running out faster. Why don't we use alternative tactics? Use Valthene stealth teams. Use Krell heavy armor. Use orbital bombardment." "Stealth won't work against Vrex numbers," a Valthene commander argued. "They operate in swarms. They'll detect infiltration." "Heavy armor is too slow for the terrain," added the Krell general. "The breeding grounds are in canyon systems. We need mobile infantry. And orbital strikes risk environmental damage," Hyun finished. "No, we need boots on the ground. We need soldiers who can adapt and push through. Human soldiers. Human soldiers who will die," Daewon said. The room went quiet. Hyun's face hardened. "Yes, some will die. That's the nature of combat. But this operation will save countless lives in the long run. Just not human lives." "That's enough, Commander," Hyun warned. "You're out of line." Daewon wanted to say more. He wanted to shout. He wanted to throw the casualty reports on the table and make them look at the numbers. But he was a soldier. He followed orders. He sat down. Hana spoke next. "I understand Commander Daewon's concerns. Human forces have borne heavy casualties. But his concerns don't change the tactical reality. This mission requires the unique capabilities human soldiers provide. Their resilience, their adaptability, their willingness to engage in close combat. No other species combines these traits." "Their willingness to die, you mean?" Daewon muttered. "What was that?" Hana asked sharply. Daewon stood again. "I said their willingness to die. That's what makes us useful, isn't it? We'll charge into situations where others won't. We'll hold positions others would abandon. We'll volunteer for missions others call suicide. That's our unique capability. You're oversimplifying, Hana said. Am I? Show me the casualty rates. Show me which species dies most often. Show me who leads every dangerous assault. This isn't about statistics, Hyun interrupted. This is about winning a war. On human bodies, Daewon shot back. The meeting erupted in arguments. Some officers agreed with Daewon. Others called him defeatist. The Krell general said humans were honored to serve. A Valthine commander suggested rotating species for dangerous missions. Hyun shouted for order. Finally, Hana stood. Her voice cut through the chaos. Everyone out. I need to speak with Commander Daewon privately. The room emptied slowly. Officers filed out, some glaring at Daewon, others looking sympathetic. Yuna caught his eye and mouthed, "Be careful." When they were alone, Hana circled the table to face him. "What's happened to you?" she asked. "You were my best officer. Now you're questioning orders, undermining command decisions. I'm asking questions that should have been asked long ago. Questions that get soldiers killed. Do you know what happens if humans refuse this mission? The Vrex breeding grounds continue operating. They produce more warriors. More planets fall. More civilians die. And if we accept it? 3,000 humans go in. How many come back? 1,000? 500? How many funerals do we hold? As many as necessary, Hana said, and there was steel in her voice. Daewon, I know you're tired. I know you've lost soldiers you cared about. But we all have. This war isn't just about humans. It's about every species in the coalition. Then why do humans die more than everyone else? Hana was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was different, colder, more distant. You want the truth? Fine. Here it is. She walked to the window, looking out at the base below. Humans feel everything so deeply. Your fear, your love, your loyalty. It makes you different from us. Valthine calculate odds. Krell follow orders but retreat when necessary. Phosians avoid combat entirely. But humans, you care so much that you'll die for causes the rest of us would simply calculate around. Daewon felt something break inside him. So we're emotional fools. No, you're the perfect soldiers. Because you can't help but care. Because you'll stand when others won't. Because you'll sacrifice yourselves without hesitation. Hana turned to face him. Her reptilian eyes were hard. That's exactly why you're so useful, Daewon. That's why we need you. Yes, you die more. Yes, you take the hardest missions, but you save everyone else by doing it. So our purpose is to die. Your purpose is to protect. And sometimes protection requires sacrifice. I'm sorry if that's not what you want to hear. But yes, Daewon, we need you to keep dying. That's your purpose here. The words hit like physical blows. Daewon stared at Hana. This woman he had fought beside for 15 years. This person he had called friend. She saw him as a tool. A useful weapon that happened to have feelings. His hands moved slowly, methodically. He reached up and unclasped his helmet. Set it on the table. Then his chest plate. Then his arm guards. Piece by piece he removed his armor. The broadcast ended. Hana stood in the communication center, staring at the silent equipment. She had said everything she could. Now there was nothing to do but wait. And probably die. The Vrex would reach Tyrannus Prime in 72 hours. The evacuation ships could save perhaps 2 million people. 8 million would remain. The technician beside her was a young Phosian named Suri. Her skin was pale and her hands shook slightly. Do you think they'll come? She asked. No, Hana said honestly. I wouldn't come if I were them. Not after what I said. Then we're all going to die here. Most likely. Suri nodded slowly. My family is among the refugees. I asked them to take the first ships out. They refused. They said if the coalition soldiers are staying, they'll stay too. Hana felt something heavy in her chest. Guilt, maybe, or shame. You should evacuate. Get your family on a ship. And leave you here alone? No, Commander. Someone should witness the end. The next 12 hours passed slowly. Hana coordinated the evacuation efforts. Ships lifted off constantly, packed with refugees. Children crying. Parents holding their belongings. Old beings who remembered peaceful times. They looked at Hana with hope, believing she could save them. She couldn't meet their eyes. Coalition forces prepared final defenses. Valthine tactical units set up firing positions. Krell heavy infantry dug into strongpoints. Phosian engineers erected barriers. Everyone knew it wouldn't be enough. They were buying time for the evacuation. Nothing more. Hana stood on the command center balcony watching the sunset. It was beautiful. Orange and purple streaks across the sky. Strange how beauty continued even when everything was ending. "Commander," Suri's voice urgent from inside. "You need to see this." Hana ran to the sensor station. Suri pointed at the displays. Ships, lots of them. Entering the system. Wrecks? No human signatures. Suri's voice filled with wonder. "Commander, they're human ships." Hana's breath caught. On the display, vessel markers appeared one after another. Dozens, then hundreds. Small ships, large ships, military and civilian. All human. All heading toward Tyrannus Prime. The communication channel crackled to life. A familiar voice. "Coalition Command, this is Day 1. Requesting permission to establish defensive perimeter." Hana grabbed the microphone with shaking hands. "Day 1? You came?" "We came." His voice was calm, steady, the voice of a soldier preparing for battle. "We have approximately 8,000 volunteers. Mixed experience levels, some military, some civilian, all willing to fight. Why?" The word came out as a whisper. "After everything I said, why would you come back?" "Because those refugees need someone to stand for them. And because standing is what we do. Not because anyone tells us to. Because we choose to." Tears ran down Hana's face. She didn't try to hide them. "Thank you. Where do you want to deploy?" "Everywhere. We'll hold the line for 12 hours. That should give your evacuation ships enough time. After that, we're pulling out. All of us, understood?" "Understood. Day 1, save it for later. We have work to do." The human ships landed across Tyrannus Prime. Soldiers emerged, checking weapons, organizing into units. They moved with purpose, but without the desperate urgency Hana remembered. These were not people following orders. These were people who had made a choice. Yuna found Hana in the command center. "Did you know he would come?" "No, I hoped. But I didn't know. He brought civilians too. Farmers, engineers, teachers. Anyone who could hold a weapon." "That's insane." "That's human," Yuna corrected. "They're not doing this because it's logical. They're doing it because it's right." The wrecks arrived sooner than expected. Their fleet emerged from hyperspace 60 hours after the broadcast. Thousands of ships darkening the sky. Landing craft descended like a plague of locusts. Day 1's voice came through the command channel. "All units, defensive positions. Remember, we hold for 12 hours. No unnecessary risks. We fight smart." The battle began at dawn. Vrex warriors crashed against human defensive lines. But this time it was different. The humans had support. Valthian snipers picked off Rex commanders. Krell heavy infantry reinforced breakthrough points. Phosian drones provided reconnaissance and targeting data. The species fought together, not with humans in front and others behind, but side by side, equal, united. Hana watched from the command center, coordinating the defense. Every hour that passed meant more refugees evacuated. Every position held meant more lives saved. 6 hours in, the eastern wall came under heavy assault. Day 1's unit was there. Hana watched the tactical display as red markers swarmed the position. "Eastern wall is buckling," Suri reported. "They need reinforcements." "Send the Krell reserve unit," Hana ordered. "And get me a direct line to Day 1. The line crackled. "Day 1 here. Bit busy at the moment. I'm sending reinforcements. Hold position. Wasn't planning on leaving. These bastards are between us and the evacuation ships." An explosion rocked the wall. Hana saw part of it collapse on the display. "Day 1, your position is compromised. Fall back to secondary defenses. Negative. If we fall back, the Vrex reach the landing pads. Evacuation stops. You'll be overrun. Then you better send those reinforcements fast." There was no fear in his voice. Just determination. "How many ships left?" Suri checked her console. 43 evacuation vessels still loading. "Tell them to hurry up," Day 1 said. Then the line cut out. The Krell reinforcements arrived 8 minutes later. They slammed into the Vrex assault, their heavy armor and weapons turning the tide. But the cost was high. The battle display showed friendly markers winking out. Each one a life lost. 10 hours in, the Western Front collapsed. Vrex broke through and reached the residential district. Human volunteers mixed with Valthian tactical teams fought them street by street. It was brutal close combat, the kind humans excelled at and hated most. Hana left the command center. She grabbed a rifle from the armory. Suri stared at her. "Commander, what are you doing?" Fighting. You should evacuate. I told you before. Someone needs to witness. I'm staying. They ran toward the western front together. The streets were chaos. Buildings burned. Bodies lay everywhere, human and alien alike. Frex warriors prowled between the ruins. Hana took position behind a barricade. A group of human soldiers was pinned down across the street. She opened fire, drawing Vrek's attention. The humans used the distraction to reposition. One of them crossed to her barricade. It was a young woman, maybe 20 years old. Her uniform was civilian, a farmer's daughter playing soldier. "Thanks for the cover," she gasped. "You shouldn't be here," Hana said. "Nobody should be here." "But here we are." The girl grinned fiercely. "Name's Mina, first battle. Hopefully your last, and hopefully everyone's last." They fought together. Hana, Mina, Suri, and a dozen others. Humans and aliens side by side. The Vreks kept coming, but so did the defenders. Every meter they held meant more time for evacuation. 11 hours in, Daewon's voice came over the general channel. "All units, this is Daewon. Evacuation is 90% complete. Begin falling back to extraction points. Fighting retreat. No heroes." "Bit late for that," someone muttered over the channel. Nervous laughter followed. Hana worked her way back toward the command center. Around her, coalition forces withdrew in good order. They had practiced this. Covering each other. Moving in stages. No one left behind. She found Daewon at the eastern wall. He was covered in ash and blood. His armor was scorched. But he was alive. "Hana," he said, surprised. "You're fighting?" Seemed like the thing to do. Crazy. But he was smiling. "The evacuation ships? Last one leaves in 20 minutes. We need to go." "Then let's go." They ran together through the burning city. Behind them, the Vreks swarmed over the walls. Tyrannus Prime was lost, but its people were saved. The last evacuation ship lifted off as Vreks warriors reached the landing pad. Daewon and Hana stood at the viewport, watching the planet shrink below. Fires covered the surface. The fortress they had defended for so long was gone. "We did it," Hana said quietly. "We saved them." "This time," Daewon replied. "Will there be a next time? Will humans fight for the coalition again?" Daewon looked at her. "That depends. Are we tools or partners?" "Partners, always." Hana extended her hand. "I mean it. No more suicide missions. No more sending humans where others won't go. We fight together or not at all." Daewon considered her hand. Then he took it. Together. As equals. As equals. Around them, the ship was crowded with refugees. Human soldiers sat beside Valthene families. Krell warriors shared rations with Phosian children. Mina was teaching a young Valthene girl a human song. Suri was helping organize medical care. They had lost Tyrannus Prime, but they had saved 8 million lives, and they had learned something important. They were stronger together, not with some bearing all the cost while others watched, but sharing the burden, sharing the sacrifice. The war continued, but it was different now. Human soldiers still fought, but they fought alongside others, not in front of them. They volunteered for dangerous missions, but not exclusively. Other species stepped up too. The Valthene held impossible positions. The Krell endured extended sieges. The Phosians even formed combat units, fragile but determined. Casualty rates became more equal. No single species bore the weight alone. The fighting was still hard. People still died. But they died together. 6 months later, the coalition launched a massive counteroffensive. The armor pieces made soft thuds as they hit the table. Each piece represented years of service. Battles fought. Lives saved. Daewon removed them all with steady hands. His chest plate with the dent from the Cronus 7 siege. His left arm guard that had saved him from a Vrex blade. His command insignia, earned through blood and sacrifice. Hana watched, her face unreadable. "What are you doing?" Daewon said nothing. He unclasped his weapon belt, set down his plasma rifle, the one he had carried for 8 years, then his combat knife, then his communicator, each item placed carefully on the table. "Daewon, answer me." He reached up and unpinned his medals. 3 of them. The Coalition Star for Valor, the Shield of Unity for defensive operations, the Crimson Cross for soldiers wounded in combat. He laid them beside the armor. "You can't just walk away," Hana said. Her voice had changed. The coldness was gone, replaced by something that might have been fear. Day-Wan looked at her. Really looked at her. He remembered fighting beside her on frozen worlds and burning deserts. He remembered sharing rations when supplies ran low. He remembered her pulling him from a collapsed bunker, refusing to leave him behind. That seemed like a different person now. Or maybe he was just seeing clearly for the first time. "Watch me," he said quietly. He walked toward the door. Hana stepped in front of him. "If you leave, it's desertion. They'll court-martial you. Then let them. Your soldiers need you. Your battalion. My battalion has been dying under my command because I kept saying yes. I kept volunteering them. I kept believing we were protecting people, but we're just dying so others don't have to. That's not fair, isn't it?" Day-Wan moved past her. "You said it yourself, Hana. Our purpose is to die. Well, I'm choosing a different purpose." He walked out. Behind him, Hana called his name. He did not turn back. The news spread quickly. By the next morning, every human soldier on Tyrannus Prime knew what happened. They knew what Hana had said. They knew Day-Wan had walked away. At first, nothing changed. Human units continued their duties. They showed up for assignments, they followed orders. But something was different. The eagerness was gone. The volunteers stopped coming forward. When Admiral Hyon called for soldiers for Operation Clean Sweep, the room stayed silent. 3,000 human troops were needed. None stepped forward. Jan tried ordering units to deploy. They complied but moved slowly, mechanically. The fire was gone. Within a week, human soldiers across Coalition space began requesting transfers. Not to different units, to non-combat roles, medical services, supply chains, engineering corps, anything but frontline combat. Some simply left. They walked off bases and disappeared. No anger, no protests, just quiet, dignified withdrawal. They turned in their weapons and went home. Coalition Command panicked. Emergency meetings were held daily. New incentives were offered, increased pay, better benefits, promises of rotation schedules. Nothing worked. The humans were done. The Vreks launched their largest offensive 2 weeks later. Without human defenders holding impossible positions, coalition lines collapsed within days. The Eastern Front fell, then the Northern Territories. Planets that had stood for months crumbled in hours. Valthene tactical units fought brilliantly, but retreated when odds became unfavorable. It was logical. Why sacrifice forces when defeat was likely? Krell heavy infantry crushed Vrex warriors in direct combat, but lacked endurance for extended sieges. After 6 hours of fighting, they withdrew to rest and rearm. Phosian technology provided excellent support, but their soldiers could not hold ground under sustained assault. The coalition was losing. Badly, refugee ships poured into remaining coalition space. Millions fled the advancing Vrex. Stories came back of horror. Cities overrun, civilians trapped. The Vrex did not take prisoners. They consumed everything in their path. Yuna found Day-Wan 3 weeks after he left. She tracked him to a small human colony called New Sol, far from the war. He was working in a field, planting crops. His hands, which once held weapons, now held simple farming tools. "Day-Wan," she called out. He looked up, shading his eyes from the sun. "Yuna, I wondered if someone would come. We need to talk. I'm done talking. I'm done fighting." Yuna walked across the field. She looked tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. "The coalition is collapsing. The Vrex have taken 30 systems in 3 weeks. Billions are fleeing. The war is lost without human soldiers." "Then it's lost. Just like that, you're giving up?" Day-Wan stood, brushing dirt from his hands. "I'm not giving up. I'm choosing to live. There's a difference. People are dying. People have always been dying. But now they're dying without taking humans with them." He met her eyes. "How many human casualties in the last 3 weeks?" "Almost none. But nothing. You see? We stopped dying. Isn't that what you wanted, what you said you cared about?" "Not if it means everyone else dies instead." Day-Wan turned away. "That's not my responsibility anymore. I was told my purpose was to die. I'm choosing differently now. What about your soldiers? What about people like Taman who believed in something greater? Taman died because I led him into battle, because I believed saving others was worth any cost. But it wasn't my cost to pay. It was his, and 89 others on that mission alone. Day One's voice cracked. I won't carry any more bodies, Yuna. I won't write any more letters to families. I'm done. Yuna was quiet for a long time. So you're just going to farm? While the galaxy burns? Yes. I'll plant things instead of burying them. I'll build instead of destroy. And maybe, just maybe, I'll sleep without seeing the faces of dead soldiers. That's selfish. Maybe. But I've been selfless for 15 years. I think I've earned some selfishness. Yuna left without another word. Day One watched her ship disappear into the sky. Then he returned to his field. News reached him in pieces. The Vrex continued advancing. Coalition forces retreated constantly. Hana tried to lead a defense on the planet Tertius. She nearly died when her position was overrun. Only a last-minute extraction by Krell forces saved her. Other species tried filling the gap humans left. They formed mixed units. They developed new tactics. But nothing worked like human soldiers had worked, because humans had done something no other species would do. They stood when standing meant death. They held lines when holding was illogical. They chose sacrifice without calculation. Now they were gone, and the galaxy was learning what their absence meant. On Tyrannus Prime, Hana stood in the empty command center. Most staff had evacuated. The Vrex were 3 days away. She looked at the memorial wall, at all those human names. I didn't understand, she whispered to the empty room. You weren't just dying. You were choosing to stand, and I reduced you to tools. She touched Taman's name on the wall. So young, so brave, so gone. Reports came in constantly. Refugee ships fleeing. Defensive positions falling. The coalition was out of time, out of space, out of hope. Hana made her decision. She walked to the communication center. The technician looked up in surprise. Commander, I thought you evacuated. Send a broadcast. Galaxy-wide. All frequencies. Ma'am? Do it. The technician worked quickly. Ready, Commander. Hana took a deep breath. This might be the last thing she ever said. She thought of Day One walking away, of all the humans who followed him. She thought of what she had lost when she stopped seeing them as people. This is Commander Hana of the Coalition Defense Force. I'm broadcasting to every human within range of this signal. I know what I said. I know how I failed you. I called you tools when you were heroes. I said your purpose was to die when it was really to stand. I was wrong. Completely, utterly wrong. Her voice cracked. The coalition is falling. Billions of refugees need evacuation from Tyrannus Prime. We can only save 30% before the Vrex arrive. The rest will die. And I have no right to ask anything of you, no right at all. But those refugees, they need someone to stand for them. Not because it's your purpose. Not because anyone orders it. But because it's who you are. She paused, gathering herself. If you come back, it won't be as soldiers of the coalition. It will be as volunteers, as equals, as people who choose this not because they have to, but because they can. I'm sorry for everything. I'm sorry I couldn't see what mattered until it was too late. The medical tent smelled of antiseptic and blood. Day One sat beside a cot where Taman lay unconscious. The young soldier's chest rose and fell weakly. Bandages covered most of his body. The doctors said he might not make it through the night. It had happened during a rescue operation. Civilians were trapped in a collapsed building. Vrex forces were closing in. Taman had gone in to pull out a Phosian family. The building exploded just as he emerged. He had thrown himself over the civilians, taking the blast himself. The family survived. Taman paid the price. You did good, Day One whispered to the unconscious boy. You saved them. A Phosian female approached the cot. Her skin was pale blue and her large eyes were wet with tears. "Is he the one?" she asked in broken human language. "Yes, he saved your family. My children alive because of him." She placed something on Taemin's cot. It was a small crystal pendant, a Phosian good luck charm. "Please tell him thank you when he wakes." If he wakes, Daewon thought. But he nodded. "I will." The Phosian left. Daewon stayed. He had learned long ago not to leave wounded soldiers alone. They needed to know someone cared. They needed to know they mattered. Commander Hana found him there 6 hours later. "Daewon, we need you in the command center. I'm staying with my soldier. This is important. High Command is calling an emergency meeting." Daewon looked at Taemin's pale face. Then he stood. "Fine. But if he wakes up, someone better be here." "I'll make sure of it," Hana promised. The command center was crowded. Representatives from all coalition species filled the room. Valthene commanders stood beside Krell generals. Phosian advisors worked at holographic displays. Human officers were scattered among them, outnumbered. Admiral Hyun, the senior human commander, was speaking. "The Vreks are pushing toward 3 core worlds. If they take those systems, we lose access to major supply routes. We're looking at a complete collapse of the Eastern Front." A Valthene admiral spoke up. "What are our options?" "Limited," Hyun admitted. "We can reinforce the core worlds, but that means pulling troops from other sectors. Or we can launch a counteroffensive. Hit them where they're weak. Force them to redirect their forces." "A counteroffensive requires significant forces," said a Krell general. His voice was deep and rumbling. "Where would we get them?" Hyun looked around the room. His eyes lingered on the human officers. "We have 3 human shock battalions in reserve. They could spearhead the attack." Daewon felt his stomach tighten. Shock battalions meant high-risk operations. It meant going into the worst fighting. It meant heavy casualties. "That's suicide," said another human officer, a woman named Yuna who usually worked in diplomacy. "Those battalions are already under strength. You're asking them to walk into a grinder. Do you have a better suggestion?" Hyun asked. Yuna looked frustrated. "Use combined forces, mix the species, use Krell for heavy assault, Valthene for tactical strikes, humans for support." "That's too slow," a Valthene commander argued. "The Vreks will adapt. We need speed and aggression. Human forces excel at that." Daewon knew what that meant. Human forces excel at throwing themselves at the enemy without hesitation. They excel at dying quickly. "What about using automated drones?" Yuna suggested. "Or orbital bombardment?" "Drones don't adapt like living soldiers," Hyun said, "and bombardment risks civilian casualties. No, we need boots on the ground. We need soldiers who can push through." Hana stepped forward. "I propose we send human shock troops to destroy the Vreks hive ship in the Tertian system. It's their main supply vessel. Take it out and we cripple their offensive capability." The room went quiet. Everyone knew about the hive ship. It was surrounded by Vreks forces. Getting close would be nearly impossible. Destroying it would require someone to plant explosives inside. It was a one-way mission. "I'll volunteer my battalion," Daewon heard himself say. Heads turned toward him. Hana looked surprised. "Daewon, your unit is at quarter strength. Then give me 2 more battalions. We can do this." "You understand the risks. Someone has to stand between the innocent and the darkness," Daewon said. It was something his grandfather used to say, a human saying from old wars. Hyun nodded slowly. Then it settled. Prepare for deployment in 48 hours. The meeting ended. Daewon walked out into the corridor, and Hana followed him. "Why did you volunteer?" she asked. "Because if I don't, someone else will. At least I know how to keep my people alive." "Not all of them." The words stung because they were true. "No, not all of them. But I try." Hana was quiet for a moment. "Do you ever wonder if it's worth it?" "Every day," Daewon admitted. "But then I think about that Phosian family, about all the people who get to live because we fight. It has to be worth it." even if it costs everything? Especially then. The mission to destroy the hive ship lasted 18 hours. They went in with 300 soldiers. They came out with 96. Daiwan led the assault personally, planting charges deep inside the alien vessel while Vrex warriors swarmed around them. The explosion was visible from orbit. When they returned to Tyrannus Prime, Daiwan went straight to the medical tent. Taemin's cot was empty. For a moment his heart stopped. Then a doctor approached. "He died 3 hours ago," she said gently. "I'm sorry. We did everything we could." Daiwan stood there staring at the empty cot. The crystal pendant still lay on the pillow. Taemin never woke up to hear the Phosian family's thanks. He never knew how much his sacrifice meant. "Did he suffer?" Daiwan asked. "No. He slipped away peacefully. That was something, at least." Daiwan picked up the pendant and put it in his pocket. He would send it to Taemin's family. They should have something to remember him by. The memorial service was held the next day. 89 names were added to the wall. 89 humans who died destroying the hive ship. Taemin's name went up too, for dying while saving others. Daiwan stood at attention as each name was read. He knew most of them personally. He had trained with them, eaten with them, fought beside them. Now they were gone. The coalition held a celebration that night. The hive ship's destruction was a major victory. It bought them time. It saved thousands of lives. Medals were handed out. Hana received a special commendation for her strategic planning. Daiwan attended in his dress uniform. Other officers congratulated him. They shook his hand. They called him a hero. He felt empty inside. Yuna found him on a balcony, away from the party. "Not in a celebrating mood?" she asked. 89 soldiers died. And thousands lived because of it. That's how war works. Is it? Daiwan looked at her. "Yuna, I've been looking at the numbers. Humans are 8% of coalition forces, but we're 47% of casualties. Does that seem right to you?" Yuna's face became serious. "Where did you get those numbers?" "I have access to the reports. I've been paying attention." "And what do you think it means?" "I think we're being used," Daiwan said quietly. "I think they send us into the worst fights because we'll go without question. Because we care too much to say no." "Be careful saying things like that," Yuna warned. "People might think you're losing faith." "Maybe I am." 3 days later, High Command called another meeting. They had a new mission, another impossible situation that needed human soldiers. Daiwan listened as they explained the plan. It required human troops to lead another assault. The fortress walls of Tyrannus Prime shook with another impact. Dust fell from the ceiling of the command bunker as Daiwan studied the battle map spread across the metal table. Red marks covered most of the eastern sector. Each mark represented a Vrex breach point. Each breach meant his soldiers were dying. "How many do we have left?" asked Taemin, the young recruit standing beside him. The boy's hands trembled slightly as he held his rifle. "Enough," Daiwan replied. He placed a hand on Taemin's shoulder. "We hold this line. The evacuation ships need 12 more hours." Outside, the screaming started again. The Vrex were attacking. Daiwan grabbed his helmet and ran toward the eastern wall. Behind him, 143 human soldiers followed. They were all that remained of his battalion. 3 months ago, there had been 500. The eastern wall was chaos. Insect creatures the size of vehicles climbed over each other, trying to reach the top. Their shells were black and shiny. Their mandibles could cut through steel. Plasma fire lit up the dark sky as coalition forces tried to hold them back. Daiwan took position at the main gate. This was the weakest point. If it fell, the Vrex would pour into the city. 2 million civilians sheltered behind these walls. Most were not human. There were Valthene families with their scaled children. There were Krell workers who had never held weapons. There were Phosian engineers whose thin bodies could not survive combat. "Steady," Daiwan shouted to his troops. "Make every shot count." A Vrex warrior broke through the line. It was massive, with blades for arms. It killed 2 Krell soldiers before Daiwan put 3 rounds into its head. Green blood sprayed across the stone. Taemin was firing his weapon non-stop. The boy's face was pale but determined. Daewon had seen that look before. It was the look of someone who knew they might die but chose to fight anyway. Hours passed. The Vrex kept coming. Daewon's armor was covered in green blood and burns. His left arm was injured but still worked. Around him, his soldiers fought on. They were tired. They were hurt. But they did not retreat. This was what made humans different. Daewon had fought beside many alien species. The Valthene were smart and strong. The Krell were powerful. The Phosians had amazing technology. But when the battle became impossible, when logic said to run, humans stayed. They stayed because someone had to. They stayed because it was right. A voice crackled in his helmet radio. Daewon, this is Commander Hana. What is your status? We're holding, he replied, shooting another Vrex. Barely. I'm sending reinforcements. Valthene heavy armor is moving to your position. Tell them to hurry. The Valthene tanks arrived 20 minutes later. Their plasma cannons tore through the Vrex lines. The pressure on the eastern wall decreased. Daewon allowed himself to breathe. Hana's voice came through again. Good work, Daewon. You held them. We lost 16 more soldiers, he said quietly. There was silence on the other end. Then, I know. I'm sorry. But you saved the evacuation. The ships are launching now. Daewon watched as transport vessels lifted into the sky. They carried thousands of civilians to safety. Children who would grow up. Parents who would see their families again. It was worth it. It had to be worth it. When the battle ended, Daewon walked among his soldiers. He checked on the wounded. He spoke to those who were scared. He remembered the names of those who had fallen. This was his duty as their commander. These were not just soldiers. They were people. They had families. They had dreams. They trusted him to lead them. Taman sat against a wall, his rifle across his lap. Blood covered his uniform, but it was not his own. Sir, the young man said, why do we always get the hardest fights? Daewon sat down beside him. Because we can handle them. But so many of us die. Yes. Daewon had no easy answers. But look at those ships. Look at all the people we saved. That's why we fight. Taman nodded slowly. My sister was on one of those transports. She's only 6 years old. Then you gave her a future, Daewon said. That matters. Later, in the command center, Daewon made his report to Hana. The Valthene commander stood tall, her scales gleaming under the lights. She had been his friend once. They had fought together for 15 years. He remembered a battle on Cronus 7 where she had saved his life. He remembered sharing rations in a frozen trench on Helios Station. Those felt like different times now. Casualties? Hana asked, her voice professional. 16 dead, 23 wounded, 8 critically. Hana entered the numbers into her datapad. Total battalion strength? 127 combat-ready soldiers. She looked up at him. Her reptilian eyes were hard to read. Daewon, you started this campaign with 500. I know. High Command is pleased with your performance. The Eastern Wall held. The evacuation succeeded. You'll receive a commendation. I'd rather have my soldiers back. Hana set down her datapad. We all would. But this is war. People die in war. Humans die more than others, Daewon said. It was not a question. He had seen the statistics. You're effective in difficult situations. Hana replied carefully. Your species has unique qualities, resilience, determination, the ability to push beyond normal limits. The ability to die well, you mean? That's not what I said. But it was what she meant. Daewon could see it in her eyes. Humans were useful because they kept fighting when others would retreat. They held impossible positions. They volunteered for suicide missions. They did not calculate survival odds like the Valthene. They did not prioritize their own safety like the Krell. They just fought until they won or died. Is there anything else? Daewon asked. Get some rest. There's another operation in 3 days. I'll need your battalion. We're at quarter strength. I know. I'll see if I can get you some replacements. Hana paused. Daewon, I know this is hard. But what you do here, what your soldiers do, it saves lives. Never forget that. He nodded and left the command center. Outside, the sun was rising over Tyrannus Prime. The city was damaged but standing. The civilians were safe. His soldiers had done their job. But as Daewon walked to his quarters, he could not shake a feeling growing in his chest. It was a cold feeling, a heavy feeling. It whispered that something was wrong with all of this, that there was a difference between fighting for others and being used by others. He pushed the feeling away. There was work to do. There was always work to do.